Good morning. Welcome to MERS Day, or whatever day this is. I saw some meme recently that said, welcome to day. So it is daytime. Welcome to it. The other thing I like to call this time is the chronicle of my hair as it grows out, and it grows out in some interesting ways. Some interesting ways that I like, some interesting ways that I do not like as much, but hopefully we will continue working together long enough that you can see the full evolution of what's going to happen here on my head. Today, this is hopefully going to be a quick, practical, doable, relaxing workshop on how to use distance learning in some ways that might be more effective in terms of connecting to your kids and teaching them than giving assignments and sort of giving feedback on those assignments, but also paying attention to the idea of sustainability. So anything that I do right now, I want it to work for my kids, absolutely, and I'm willing to work and strive to connect to my kids to make sure that they're being taught in clear ways, all that stuff. But I also have to make sure that it's not creating a scenario for me where I'm going to burn out and not be able to do it after a week or so. So we're going to look at effectiveness, but also sustainability in terms of distance learning. It has to be easy-ish for me. And I say ish because, of course, nothing about teaching is easy, certainly right now. Okay, so when we think about distance learning, one way to do it is to set up clear, good assignments online that the kids take and they do, and then they upload, and then we respond to them. And I think that is going to be a drumbeat of the units to come that we're doing remotely, right? So that's one way. What I want to look at today is the ways that we can use our devices, our technology, our community, our colleagues to create other ways for kids to access the materials, understand the materials, but honestly also connect with us. And I think that's the thing that I keep coming back to as I'm working with districts and schools, as I'm piloting lessons, as I'm working with classes of kids, is that really what they want is and need is connection to you preferably, but definitely to your school building. A colleague of mine just said recently that this time is really exposing kids' relationships to our schools, and it's a kind of almost assessment of how do parents feel in connection to our school buildings. And I'm sure you're seeing the variety that I'm seeing in most schools is that you have kids who are very connected, parents who are very connected, they feel invited, they feel welcome, they feel happy in the school building, which means they also feel happy and welcome and invited in our online communities. And then we also see that there are kids and families who don't feel that way, right? The kids who we haven't gotten in touch with yet, who haven't shown up, the parents who aren't sure how to download materials, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so here's the deal. When I think about distance learning in an effective and sustainable way, I'm gonna strive for two things. Balance. So I wanna make sure that I have a balance of live events and a balance of either pre-recorded or uploaded materials, right? So I want a balance of those two things. Balance, in my mind, does not necessarily mean equal. I have one leg that's a little longer than the other, and yet I still manage to walk, right, with balance, even though it's not even. It's just that I'm going to find my balance in that. You are going to find your balance in that. Within your grade, you might have people that have different balances of live events and pre-recorded or uploaded events. I just want there to be a balance that feels like is working for me and is working for my kids. And then the second thing that we're going to be aiming for is variety. Our kids are going to need variety. We're going to want variety. I'm not sure which way is going to work for which kid in terms of motivating them and helping them to understand what it is that they're being asked to do, wanting to do it. So I want to give them a lot of different sort of touch points in being able to think about the work ahead. So we're going to look for balance and variety. Before I go into sort of the content of what we're going to think about, we want to think about what the platforms are that we're going to use. What is the tech that you have available to you? Meg and I do a lot of work thinking about like what's the lowest tech option. Certainly the lowest tech option is uploading assignments, right? And having the kids hand in those assignments and you grade them. You can go one rung up the technological ladder though, and just do sort of what I'm doing now, which is to record a video where you have like maybe a piece of chart paper behind you, right? To almost treat it just like your classroom. Use your charts so that there's something visual that they can use. So maybe you're going to do this kind of distance learning thing through recorded videos, mostly. That's fine. You also can think about what kind of live platforms you have. If you're in Google Classroom, that's Google Meet or Google Hangouts, or you could do the Zoom thing is also good. But you might want to play around with like, how will kids occasionally like just touch base with you, right? And then there are these platforms, you know, another rung that you can grab on the technological ladder is that there are all these platforms that kids can record themselves and upload them to like a bulletin board almost, right, of stuff. So that's like Flipgrid, Padlet, Seesaw. Like there are these apps now that make it really, really easy for young people to like record themselves, for you to record yourself, to have like a kind of, it's not exactly a conversation, but it's like this place where you can post things, where you can see each other and watch each other. And there's been something really nice about that. So one thing just to think about before we go into sort of the content of how to do these things is what exactly are you going to use? What do you feel comfortable with? What do you feel able to do in your teaching? And whatever the answer is to that is great, right? Like to me, the beauty of this time is that you're just going to try some stuff. And as you try some stuff, you're going to see what works for you and what doesn't. So I invite you, before we sort of dive in, to just think about like, what are you willing to try in the next couple weeks and just see how it goes? Is it just recording a video of you teaching with a piece of chart paper behind you? Is it some kind of live event that we'll talk about different options for? Is it a kind of Flipgrid Padlet setup where you have a sort of system going where you're able to connect with kids? So think about that. We've got balance and variety. We got to think about what we're going to use, what we're able to use, what we're willing to use, what we're willing to try. And then really, you know, I'm thinking about this work as having sort of 3 components to it. So anything I do, right? Anything I do with distance learning, I need to have 3 qualities that I'm aiming for. The first is clarity. It is humbling to me. I have no idea why I'm holding this up. You know the word clarity. It is humbling to me how challenging it is in distance learning to communicate information from me, the teacher, to my students. So much gets misinterpreted. It feels like a game of telephone sometimes. I know for students, I know this for my kid, I know for myself, that the amount that kids are able to do right now has reduced dramatically, right? I'm sure you've seen it, that like a lesson I think is going to take like 1 day takes kids like 2 or 3 days to execute. And there's so many reasons for this, and that's not true for every kid, but that just seems to be a reality right now. So the more that I can keep my teaching and my work super clear, where it's going to be really easy for a young person, for a 7th grader, to just kind of be like, oh, I see what she wants me to do, right? I see what it is that I'm supposed to be reaching for or pushing myself to do in this work, is going to really, 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 really help. So with that in mind, I circle back to the drumbeat that I've been beating since the beginning of time, it feels like now, which is that especially now, I want to be thinking for any round of teaching I'm doing, whether it's a week or even just a unit, I want to really ask myself, what is the skills focus for this unit? And the smaller I can make that list, I think really, especially right now, the better. So if I can say the skills focus for this unit is if I want to say the skills focus for this unit is, I'm looking at my notes from our conversation last time. Skills focus for this unit is theme, or the skills focus for this unit is craft. It looks like on your list that the short text unit you're thinking about is mostly a craft unit. But what I noticed in our conversation is that as you were talking about it, you were sort of adding a bunch of others into it as well, right? Which is nothing wrong with this. It's fine to do that, except that you see how it makes it a little less clear what the work is. Like I see you have theme, conflicts, mood, text evidence, descriptive language. So that's a lot, right? And so if I'm a seventh grader and I'm working independently and I'm not the most motivated kid even in school, right? And now I'm at home and there's all these things and my siblings and noise and I have a device and the more that I can just take a breath and say, you know what we're going to really focus on for the next few weeks is we're going to read a bunch of short texts and you're going to get really good at identifying and analyzing a couple craft moves. All of a sudden, I think that clarity starts to take shape. Okay, so first big thing for distance learning is the same thing that I argue for all learning, which is we need clarity. And the first big way to do that is not to tell kids, hey, you need to do this and this and this and this. Actually, we're just going to get good at one thing at a time. Okay, that's one thing. The second thing is that once I have that skill in mind, I want to think about a progression for that skill and make sure that I have it really clarified. So if I just take, I'm going to pretend that you have chosen craft for this unit. So if I take craft as the skill that we're really going to push kids to practice over and over again, specifically things like descriptive language and mood, right? But it doesn't really matter what the craft moves is, because the skill of identifying and analyzing craft should be essentially the same. You're just kind of rotating out like definitions of craft moves to notice. But I want to really think like, okay, so what's the beginning, the intermediate, and the advanced levels of that skill? Like if I think about craft in particular and analyzing craft in text, I know that at the beginning, we can just say I can identify craft moves in a text. Now, you can always put in descriptive language here or put in what craft move you want, but I might first just say I can identify craft moves in a text. Next level up, what I notice is that kids can identify and name I'm going to say general purpose for that craft move. And I say general because sometimes we even put in here that the purpose may come from like a menu that you give kids. In other words, we might give the kids like a list of reasons why authors use descriptive language, to engage the reader, to reveal a mood, to hint at a theme, to emphasize a character trait or something, or a character feeling. And kids might use that menu to kind of be like, okay, I see the descriptive language here, and right here, she's doing it to reveal character, right? What's nice about this level of craft work is that all kids can do it and they can feel successful, and they usually choose right, and they can sound pretty smart pretty quickly. But then higher level up, we might do some work of saying like, I can think about why the author is using craft, and I usually say in text-specific ways. And maybe I can explain how the craft achieves the purpose. And you may not even want to put this down here. I'm just going to put it here so that you can play around with it if you want. I say that because this is very hard. Like actually describing why craft achieves a purpose is tough. But here you're saying not just like, oh, that descriptive language is revealing character. Here you're saying that descriptive language is revealing the tension inside the character as they're about to leave home. Do you know what I mean? They're like getting like, they're actually answering the question of like how this craft move, or what purpose this craft move achieves. So if I think about craft, I know I'm doing this quickly, that you might want to make this more complicated, although I almost would caution you against it. When I'm talking about clarity, what I'm saying to kids is that in the short text unit, you may do other things, but the thing that you're really going to be practicing over and over again is this idea of craft, using descriptive language. And here's your progression. And every time you do any of this practice, I want you just to think about what level you're working and how you're going to push yourself as you move forward. Okay, so that's one thing. We want there to be clarity in our instruction. It's going to really help kids to be clear if we're thinking of one thing at a time that we're focusing on, one skill at a time. And for each of those skills that we've clarified a progression. For many of you, you might have the progressions in the reading pathways that you're leaning on or other progressions you're leaning on. That's great. I just highly, highly encourage you to simplify it as much as possible. Like, for any of you who look at this progression I've drafted and think, oh, that's way too simple, I would just try using it with kids and see if that's true. Like, what I notice is that these moves are hard enough. The simpler I can make it, the better. Okay, so that's one big thing. We want our teaching to be really clear if I'm going to do distance learning. The second thing, though, is that we want all of our distance learning, really, once we've got the clarity down, to be about connection. And kids feeling like they're getting contact with us, they're getting motivated by us. They're not losing, like, I think about this time as like, I'm trying to just tie a little tether between the school and what school represents, what school is, to the kids. And yes, they might be floating in the air, right? But they've got this little string that's holding them. I don't know that assignments are going to be enough for that. I think that they need our faces, they need our voices, they need our mistakes, they need our fumbles, they need a bit of us. So this is where I have to decide, is this a live event that I'm going to create with kids, or is this a pre-recorded? And my suggestion is that you do a little bit of both. That you do some live events with your kids. What I'm noticing is that middle school teachers are tending to echo the work that my son's kindergarten teacher is doing, that they're doing a kind of, not morning meeting, but a weekly meeting with their classes, that each class gets a 10-minute, 15-minute, 20-minute check-in with you, where like you just get together as a class, whoever can come, and just say hello. You can do what a friend of mine did and tell a joke of the week and have kids come in with a joke of the week, or a quote from their books of the week, or something like that. Just something to be able to see each other's faces, to see you, to talk together. It's not academic. You're just like, how's it going? What's up? Not all your class will come, but the kids who need it hopefully will, and at least they'll know that it's available to them. So that would be one recommendation, that you have some live events that you're able to do where kids can just see you, see each other, touch base. But probably a lot of your instruction in terms of connection is going to be pre-recorded. And I just wanted to demystify a little bit what I mean by that, because I really want to lean on the mini lesson. But I want to lean on the parts of the mini lesson that I think matter the most right now. So if I think about mini lessons and how they go, this is just a review, I think, for most of you. Mini lessons have a connection. So why am I teaching this to you? They have a teach. Let me demonstrate how the strategy works. Then often they have like an active engagement where the kids try it really quickly. And then there's a link of how am I going to apply this to my schoolwork. When we look at distance learning, this can really help our lessons be super, super short. We're just going to get rid of the active engagement probably most days, unless I have the ability and the time and it's a live event, all of that. I'm mostly going to say things to kids like, today I want to teach you that there are predictable reasons why authors use, let's just say, descriptive language. And that readers read thinking about, why is the author using this right now? And then I could do a quick teach where, let's say, I haven't planned this particularly well, but let's just say we take a book off my shelf. This is a great book, by the way. It's a great series, dystopia series by Neil Shusterman. I'm going to take a book, and if I'm teaching this strategy, what I might first say is, okay, so I'm going to be reading our read aloud, our book, our short text that we're reading together, and I'm going to be on the lookout for descriptive language or whatever craft moves you're teaching kids to pay attention to. And, when I find it, I'm just going to pause and think to myself, why is the author using this? Maybe the author is using it to set a mood in the text. Or maybe the author is doing it to help us understand something or see something. Like, this is going to be important for you to see in your brain, so I'm going to use descriptive language to help you see it. Or maybe it's there to reveal something about the character. Okay, let's just look for these three things. Okay, so in a mini lesson, I might name what it is I'm going to teach, give them a little bit of a lesson of some of the purposes of craft, and then I might do a quick demonstration on a text they know, right? So I could put the text here and just say, okay, I'm going to look for descriptive language, and then I'm going to stop and I say, okay, what are the reasons why the author's using this descriptive language? Scythe Anastasia stalked her prey with patience. Well, even there, I can just pay attention to that, stalked her prey with patience, and the language the author is using and how descriptive it is, right? Stalked her prey. That feels descriptive to me. Let me think, what are the reasons why I think Neil Schusterman is using this language here? Is it to set a mood? Maybe a little bit. Is it to help us understand or see something? I don't think so. But I think it's to reveal character, right? I think that in this moment, Schusterman is using stalked her prey with patience to give us this understanding of what Scythe Anastasia is like right now. Okay, so see what I did there, right? I'm just naming the strategy. I'm doing a quick teach, and then I want to do the link and say, okay, so you saw me do this today. This is the work I want you to do for the next couple days in your independent reading. Let's see if we can find anywhere from 3 to 5 moments in your independent reading books or in your short text that you're using, where you see the use of descriptive language. And I want all of you to try to think of what is the reason. I'm going to upload this to your Google Drive so that you have this list for you, and I can't wait to check in with your work. Okay, so I think you'll agree that lesson, if that's what I actually recorded, wouldn't win any like mini lesson awards. But do you see how like it's short? That took 2 minutes. I leaned on what I know about mini lessons, connection, teach, and link. I'm doing some kind of unpacking of some of the work that I want the kids to do. I'm practicing it a little bit in my text, my short text in your case, that we're playing around with. And then I'm setting the kids up with some work that they can do. I don't think mini lessons have to be that complicated. I don't even think they have to be that great. I do think our kids need some teaching during this time though, and they need us to be doing that teaching whenever possible. That being said, I know you don't have the time necessarily to do every single mini lesson. I know one of you in particular was like, I don't know if I could do that. Your kids climbing on you, etc. So this can be a communal event. The best is that it's you because you're your kid's teacher, but certainly your kids know your colleagues, right? They know everyone in the building. So I know my kids would have been psyched to see, not his teacher, but the teacher next door, Miss Furnett, do a lesson. He would be like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. So we can record lessons. We can divvy up that work in a short text unit and think, okay, what do we want to teach our kids? Who's going to take this on? Who's going to take that on? Record a bunch of videos and we can all use them interchangeably if we want to. Okay, so when we think about connection, 1, live events. 2, pre-recorded lessons, right? Nice and easy, super simple. Use the mini lesson structure to help you out. Don't worry about whether it's great or not, right? The whole point is that your kids get you. They don't need you to be perfect. My son's kindergarten teacher is messing up all the time and the kids think it's great and she's just rolling with it and they love her for it, right? So it doesn't have to be that you are an Instagram teacher right now. You just need to be yourself. So those 2 points of connection I feel like are really important. The others, of course, are written communication. So writing on a Google Doc in a different color response to kids. The only thing I want to say about that in this context is that I highly encourage you to make that feedback as personal and personable and complimentary as possible right now. Motivation is the biggest issue I'm seeing. It's not about what kids' ability is right now. It really, I mean, it is. But man, it's about the kids wanting to come back to this assignment day after day, right? And keep doing the work, even though they don't have the motivation of the school and you, etc. So anytime I'm giving feedback, if I can err on the side of you're doing awesome, keep it up. I'm so proud of you, I think is the way to go. Okay, so we talked about clarity. We talked about connection in distance learning. The last thing I wanted to name really quickly is the last C. I have 3 C's: clarity, connection, and the last is compassion. And you know, I think that the idea that we have to have a lot of room right now for ourselves, for our colleagues, for our administrators, and we have to have a lot of room for our kids to be imperfect. You know, when I'm trying to reach out to kids, when I'm trying to do this video, for example, you know, when I first sat down, I was like, oh, my hair's kind of messed up. I didn't get a good night's sleep last night. I'm feeling a little rough around the edges. My anxiety's a little high today. And so I had this moment where I was like, I shouldn't do this video, right? Like I should wait till I feel better or look better or have a better day. But I've got to believe that my imperfect self, just offering what I have, what I think is helpful, is going to be better than me hiding until I'm feeling right enough or perfect enough or good enough. I've got to have compassion with myself right now. And I have to believe that everyone else is going to have compassion for me too. So I hope that when you're starting these recordings of videos, when you're starting to have live events with kids, that you give yourself that same compassion. That when your colleagues are acting out in ways that maybe aren't helpful all the time, you have compassion for them because we're all going through it right now. And then of course our kids. What I'm noticing in my son is that he's 5. He's not talking about how hard this is for him right now, right? I don't know if he's even aware of how hard this is for him right now. What's happening is that he's melting down and having tantrums that are pretty unpleasant to be around, right? About things that are pretty small and not related at all to the quarantine or the pandemic that's happening. But that's what kids do, right? They don't act out in the ways that we want them to, right? They don't fall into our arms and cry. They don't reach out to us and write letters of how, you know, diary entries of the pandemic to their teacher about struggles they're having. They don't show up. They don't hand in assignments. They are angry. They're sullen. They're whiny. They're unpleasant. And I think in this time, as much compassion as we can have for kids, as much as we can find grading systems, which I know you're working out, but whatever grading system is given to us, as much as I can find grading systems that give kids the benefit of the doubt, that encourage kids to stay connected to school, I think the more successful our distance learning is going to be. These are not normal times, right? So I can't expect that my teaching is going to be normal, that the kids' learning is going to be normal. I want to make sure that I open up my heart, that I open up my head for this time to be what it is, not what someone else says it should be. So I hope that's helpful. I'm going to stop now, send it to you, and I'm going to be here for any questions that come up. But really, the big thing is that I want to have some balance and variety. I want to think about what my platforms are, and then whatever I'm doing, I want to make sure that I have a lot of clarity, that the kids know exactly what it is they're being assessed on, what they're being asked to practice, that I'm using distance learning to connect to kids first and foremost, and that I'm treating everyone with a whole bunch of compassion as we do. Hope you all have a great day. I wish I could see your faces right now as we do this workshop, but I can't wait to meet with you next week. Take care, everybody.